Welcome to KO Stories, where I tell stories of the mysterious, twisted, and paranormal. And today is no different. I got a really good story for you guys. So, without any further ado, it's time to slip into a mind that's not our own. Welcome back to Hell Week, everybody. Now, I just want to preface this with I left some information out because of the ending. And it just would have been filler information. But if I would have written this, say, 7 or 8 years ago, I definitely would have left all of that information in. And the story would be about 3 times as long. But like I said, at the end, you'll figure out why I did that. And another bonus is at the end, so stick around. And also, real quick, I just wanted to say, of course, I wanted to make everything Halloween themed, but I was looking for the biggest twist in stories ever, and unfortunately, Mr. Ballin has told most of those. I mean, even the Scream, the real-life Scream movie person, but it's like, do you still want me to do some of those or no? Because I found 5. With amazing twists at the end that nobody would see coming. And I found 2 that I really liked. Mr. Ballin has done all of them. So just leave in the comments whether or not you still would want me to do my own spin or version on that. Because I barely remember Mr. Ballin's, but once I read them, I was like, yep, he did that. But either way, as of now, it's time to slip into a mind that's not our own. Let's go. Now, in Sycamore, Illinois, there was a 7-year-old Maria who was a very pretty young girl. And she had these big brown eyes, and she shined with warmth and intelligence. And Kathy, who was a year older, felt honored to be her friend. Now, they only lived a few doors down from each other on a side street called Archie's Place, or Archie Place. Now, it was their whole world back in 1957, a time when children played hide and seek outside instead of, watching television or being on their phones, and people didn't lock their doors in this Midwestern farm town because, everybody knew everybody else. Okay, so on the first Tuesday of December in 1957, the 2 girls later in the day were outside, and all of a sudden, a older male who called himself Johnny asked if, they both wanted some piggyback rides. Now, of course, these little kids, they both said yes, and Maria went first. And Johnny asked if they also liked dolls. And, of course, they said yes. So Maria, she ran to her house 3 doors down at 616 Archie Place to fetch a beloved doll of hers and to get the next piggyback ride. But Kathy waited on the sidewalk with Johnny, and he asked whether she wanted to take a walk around the block or go on a trip in his truck or car or bus. And she said, no, thank you. Now, he told her she was pretty, but she sensed it was Maria, actually, that he liked more. So now you got Maria, and she's running down the street, and then she bursts into her house, only to find her father, Michael, in the living room watching a old Western movie. And her mother, Frances, was reading the newspaper. So Maria kind of looked through, and she picked out her favorite doll from the toys piled that were right around the door. But her mother suggested that she take an older rubber doll out into the snow instead so it doesn't get ruined. Now, Kathy felt a chill, I would describe it as soon as Maria joined them back on the sidewalk. Because now, it was Kathy's turn to run home because she had to go get her mittens. And she asked Maria to come along, but Maria didn't want to go. And then, when Kathy returned just a few minutes later with her gloves, Maria and Johnny were gone. And sadly, this was the last time Maria Rudolph was ever seen alive. Now, the search for Maria and her kidnapper turned into an FBI investigation. Now, an early suspect was John Tessier, the son of a neighbor who the community only described as creepy. Now, Maria's kidnapping made national headlines. Many people were interested in finding this little girl, including the President of the United States at that time, Dwight Eisenhower. Now, according to some sources, both he and J. Edgar Hoover, the director of the FBI, asked to be updated regularly on the case because they wanted to know everything. And there was a lot resting on finding her, preferably alive. Unfortunately, Maria's body was found 5 months later and 90 miles away. Now, however, John had an alibi, and he passed a lie detector test. And his alibi was that he was joining the army and he had a train ticket, so there was no possible way he could have done it. No possible way. Or could he? Now, nothing really came of this, and the case kind of went cold. So an unexpected lead came in 1994 when John Tessier's mother, Eileen, made a dying confession to her daughter, Janet. And she said, quote,
"Those two little girls and the one that disappeared, honey, John did it. John did it. And you have to tell someone."
I know, kind of crazy, right? I mean, deathbed confession. And not only this, but after a number of years, police found a photograph of John with his ticket. And the ticket was never stamped, which means he never went on that train. Then, all the way in 2008, headlines were made again when a breakthrough occurred in the Maria Rudolph cold case. Now, Jake McAuliffe, then known as John Tessier, was brought in. And the murder of Maria Rudolph was believed to be solved in 2012 when he was convicted of the crime. And this conviction mainly came because Kathy and her testimony of remembering Johnny, who was John Tessier, and later changed his name to Jack McAuliffe. Plus, Jack also had a couple of run-ins of the law, being accused a couple times of sexual assault, and it seemed like this case would finally just be closed, and the oldest cold case ever of 50 plus years would be finally put to rest. The intel and the information were finally coming to a close. Well, that's the story that would have been told to you, like I said, up until about 7 or 8 years ago. Because the twists keep coming. In the decades-old tragedy, as it turns out, McAuliffe was wrongly imprisoned for a crime that he did not commit. And McAuliffe got out of prison in 2016, and the charges against him were dropped. And with Jack McAuliffe innocent, Maria Rudolph's case is once again open, and her murder remains unsolved. Now, maybe they really did get it wrong, and John was not the killer. But 11 days after Maria went missing, he did join the military, moved to Washington State, and became a policeman in Lacey, which is a town east of Olympia. So at the end of the day, why things were overturned in court and why he is innocent is because the evidence didn't line up. And that photograph that was shown to Kathy, as we talked about earlier, how Kathy was an important part, that's because she saw a photograph and said, "Yep, that's Johnny, that's who I saw." Well, that photograph that was shown to Kathy that pinned John as the suspect was quote-unquote suggestive in the extreme. Now, this means most likely she was given information prior that, hey, that's the person of interest. Make sure to pick him. So now, because of the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine and many other doctrines, this would, as you know, be void, nullified in court, not admissible, whatever you want to say. So the legal system, basically, if Johnny is the killer, which, Johnny, no stamp ticket, alibi falls apart. If he really is the killer, this was a serious miscarriage of justice because he still belongs in prison for what probably he did, which is probably killing Maria. We know she was found 90 miles away. And, a case like this is just so sad because such a little girl who has her whole life ahead of her, you would think the least we could do for her is find her damn killer. So yes, This case still remains open, and we will be going through it on Detective Work, a series of live streaming that I will be dropping soon after Hell Week. So do your research, because we need, in this circumstance, to catch a killer.
Welcome to KO Stories, where I tell stories about true crime, missing people, and the paranormal. As of now, it's time to slip into a mind that's not our own.